Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Waking the People. I am your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears, and I am accompanied by my fantastic co-host, Joshua. Introduce yourself, brother. I always mess up whenever I do.
Good evening, my loyal patriots and our faithful subscribers. Thank you for turning into another episode of Waking the People. If you have not yet, please don't forget that subscribe button. We are trying to reach our goal of 60 subscribers by the end of this month. We're at 50, so we hit last month's goal this week. So please help us out. If you like our content, don't forget to share, comment, like, all that good YouTube stuff. As far as this week, Chad and I, we are both fired up, but not necessarily about the same things. This actually should be a pretty fun episode. If you're one of our, more political followers, just because our show is a little bit more political, it may be kind of a fun episode. Maybe you don't have to hear too much about politics, because it definitely can be draining at times. There's going to be a little bit of pop culture in there. We're going to talk about some economics. We're going to talk about social media and the many, many things that it has completely changed about our world, both for the good and the bad. So it should be a great episode, Chad.
I absolutely agree. We only have a little bit about politics in this episode overall between the two of us. We have a lot of other social situations that we're going to address, as well as some other things that are going to be kind of fun. So watch me take a stroll down therapy inebriated lane as Joshua tries to hold it all together. So you guys are welcome to enjoy the hell out of this show. And without further ado, Joshua, let's dig into our first situation.
So yeah, I told Chad that we needed a little bit of a politic break this week. So if you didn't get Chad's little joke, that's kind of what it's about. So first, let's start off with the Federal Reserve and inflation, because they came out this week and they talked about all the scare that's been going around as far as inflation increasing in the United States and interest rates going up. And from what they let on, they said that they expect the same normal about 2% increase in inflation across the country. Now, I did a little bit digging and I beg to differ. So just in March alone of this year, we reached 2.7% increase in inflation. And that's actually the largest month-to-month gain. So as far as February, to March, that we've had since 2012. So that's a pretty substantial jump in our, overall projected yearly inflation rate, because we're definitely used to 2%. Now, I don't know about you, Chad, but not just in gas. Like if you go to the grocery store now and you look at some prices, some food items, they're already a lot more than they were, let's say, last year around this time.
Yeah. I imagine we're going to see a continuous and gradual increase in everything. We already are getting some feedback off of our Facebook Live world too, which is they're echoing the sentiment. Nobody thinks that we're actually at that. Oh no, it's going to be a gradual increase. I'm sorry. Tell me, in what universe can we actually just print money without anything backing it and expect it to continue to hold the same value? It's not going to happen. So we've got to increase our total country value, the GDP, before we actually see any kind of value get behind the dollar again. So now, don't take it from me. I'm not an economics major. I'm not an AOC. No, I'm sorry, AOS. I have to apologize to everybody. It's Alexandria Ocasio-Smollett. Let me make sure I'm straight and clear here. So yeah, so I do have a little audio clip for us as far as what we should expect as we get used to and adjusted to this inflation value. And this is the audio I got for it.
This is paying compliance, okay? It's not meant to be comfortable.
It is paying compliance. It's not meant to be comfortable.
It's true. And I mean, and you're not an expert, Chad, but I looked at some of the financial experts in our country, and they stated that we could see a 3.7% increase in inflation as early as next month. So there's a lot of scare going on around, inflation and possible hyperinflation in the United States currently. Michael Berry, the guy who called The Big Short, have you seen that movie? The 2008 housing market crisis, went on Twitter and stated that the United States is headed toward hyperinflation, and Twitter banned his account. Banned it, Chad. Removed him. And then we're talking about the guy who called one of the biggest financial collapses in history when everyone was telling him that he was a complete idiot and you're wrong. And, you know, some of his own clients are like trying to pull their money out and this guy doesn't know what he's doing. So the guy who called one of the biggest upsets ever in history stated his opinion on Twitter. And then the federal government, even not only just Twitter, had him removed for that.
God damn. Now, I don't know if anybody else feels like I do. Perhaps everybody feels like the government absolutely has our interest, and you know they're really looking out for us, especially this administration. I don't know if you guys feel that way, and perhaps maybe you're picking up the fact that I am being quite sarcastic, even if my tonality is not delivering the message as well. It's been a long week, and I spent a lot of time going, "Are you freaking kidding me?" So with that, it's got me a little tired. So yeah, it is insane to me to believe that people actually think that our government right now has our best interest in mind. Now, we do have people in government with our best interest in mind. Shout out to DeSantis, my man. But I definitely don't count this administration as that. So are they going to tell us the truth? Hell no. Come on, man. You know the thing. Nancy,
Right.
can I take questions? But point is that yes, we're gonna be in an interesting ride here. I don't know if anybody's heard, and this is supportive to this topic, but yet a digression from it. Venezuela is still actively rejecting socialism. Venezuela is like as deep in socialism as you can get right now, and they're still trying to get it out. They're still protesting to try to get it out. But it really, at this point, the government's too strong for the citizenship, and the likelihood they're going to be able to pull out of that without other intervention, it's going to take a revolution for them to actually get out of that situation. So, and if why that's relevant to this is if we keep going down this path, some people are crying, going, "We need socialism in the United States." Socialism is a gateway. It's like a gateway drug to communism. And it's not all peaches, rainbows, and unicorn farts. No, there's a few things else that actually is not so great about it. So our inflation goes up. I'm sorry, that's kind of redundant, but you know, inflation continues, and what are we going to expect? You know, food's going to get more expensive. All of our living costs, everything is going to get more expensive. As far as the regular costs, gasoline, things like that, we've got jackasses and working in this new cabinet that's also talking about doing a double tax on driving, one tax for gas, one tax for mileage. So with that, there's a whole hell of a lot that we need to keep in mind about this. So this is not really intended to scare you. We just want to make sure people are aware that we see this inflation thing happening, and they're trying to encourage us to believe that it's not anything out of the usual. You know, we can't spend unlimited money and expect that it's not going to increase, you know, our daily cost of living. So, all right, again, no expert in that. And I think I've actually got a small increase in my expertise thanks to Alessian. I believe I mispronounced that improperly. Space dust. So it's increased my confidence and my knowledge today. So if you're not with me on this just yet, run on down to your local grocery store. Go ahead and buy yourself a 6-pack of this that once would have cost you about $11 for about, I don't know, $48 and some Doge coins. We'll get to that later. But in the meantime, join me. It increases your confidence too, and also how attractive you are to yourself. So with that, let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this country like really understands like the concept of what hyperinflation means. So in Venezuela, like when you go to buy things, you don't buy it based on how much each one of their currency is worth. You buy based on the weight of the money you bring. So imagine bringing like duffel bags of dollar bills to go and buy like a 40-pound loaf of bread. That's hyperinflation. And I think that's a big reason, moving to our next topic, that we're seeing this rise in cryptocurrencies. Now, maybe some of our viewers aren't really 100% sure about what cryptocurrencies are. This is all for entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor, but I do study this stuff quite a bit. I'm not an expert. I'm still kind of scratching the surface, but let me give you like a quick overview of what cryptos are. So
John,
all like do it.
if I can do something real quick, and I apologize for interrupting you, but if you want to feel more like an expert at it, then just get yourself one of these little Stardusts. There's the commercial cut. Let's go. Keep on.
It's true. It's true. So think of Bitcoin. So like Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency. It came out in 2008, right after the housing market crisis, which we just talked about. And it came out for the sole purpose that it is a decentralized currency. Now, Bitcoin with a capital B is actually the blockchain technology that runs Bitcoin with the lowercase b, that is the currency. Now, when you hear blockchain, a lot of people freak out mentally. Literally all a blockchain means, it is a ledger. So let's say I give Chad $100. It would go into the blockchain. It would be recorded as far as how much was purchased, how much was sent, what time it was sent, what day it was sent, and who sent it, right? So that's literally all Bitcoin is. It's just a giant ledger of people exchanging, putting money in, and receiving pretty much Bitcoin, the currency, for putting their money into the blockchain. So I hope that can kind of paint a little bit of a picture. This stuff is very, very, very challenging to understand and is still ever growing in front of our eyes. But that's definitely a reason why you see, you know, these decentralized, right? The only thing that controls Bitcoin is the people who put money into Bitcoin. And at the same time, Bitcoin has a limited amount of coins that will ever be produced. I think it's 2037 or 40. I think it's 37 that it could be 47. There's a deadline, a date, a year that there will be no more Bitcoin and none will be made ever again. So obviously we have a limit, right? It's almost like putting the dollar back on the gold standard, to where every dollar you have is worth a certain amount of gold. So for those people who are kind of skeptical about something like Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency, it should actually be the opposite. I mean, going back to what we talked about and how we just printed like $106 trillion backed by air, at least Bitcoin has a limited amount, and it's something that can easily transition on your phone, and no one can control it. So like, the government can't freeze your assets if something were to happen to you. No one has control of it. The blockchain, which is just thousands of computers linked together that constantly check and check and check for just mishaps in the algorithm, it'll stop it. It's insane.
I don't know if I'm actually rooting for Skynet, or if, for the people that don't get the reference, that is the system that was put into place. That was an AI system in the movie Terminator that eventually became sentient and decided to start killing people off because it realized that the greatest harm on the planet were human beings. The greatest threat on the planet was human beings. And that was Skynet. Actually, I think more Google probably would be a representation of that, or what's that, Alibaba?
Yeah, also Ethereum is would take Google out of the equation. It would be a decentralized world computer with access to the internet. So if you plug something into the blockchain information, and that information is incorrect, there was there's dApps, as they call them, different coins that build off of Ethereum that would actually find that incorrect information and would correct it. So you'd always get the right information.
Damn, son.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You see, I feel like
essentially, I mean, maybe not exact, but there are things like Ethereum is it's a world computer. I mean, it's everyone, it's decentralized, so no one has control of it. And, if someone were to, there's dApps, right? Ethereum has like coins that build off of it. There's dApps that could ultimately be like a decentralized Facebook or a decentralized YouTube, to where you just go and plug the information in, and you create your own platform, so to speak. It hasn't been done yet, so it's kind of hard to articulate, but essentially you would never get banned because it's decentralized. No one's controlling it.
Imagine that. No more Jack Dorsey. No more What's that? Oh, what's that little bastard's name? Oh, I forgot it. Zuckerberg. Jesus.
Mm-hmm. He's
Yeah.
a snake too, man. He stole that. And like the more you dig into crypto, like the Winklevoss twins, the people that were, supposedly Mark Zuckerberg stole Facebook from, these guys are like heavy into crypto. So like when you like start studying crypto and you learn a little bit more about them, you actually really look at Facebook a lot differently. And you're like, wait a minute, that dude stole that crap from them. Like they made that and he just took it and made it a little bit better.
I bet he was sitting there in the room with like a couple other people. Caution here, an ad hominem attack is on its way for Mark Zuckerberg. So I bet he was just sitting in the room. There's like a couple of guys sitting there in college. They're sitting in the room together, and they're over there talking and they're going over stuff. And Mark's kind of like, "Hey guys, what you looking at? What you doing? What is that?" And they're like, they pick up the bomb, they fire it down, they get themselves all nice and ripped, and they're not paying attention. And then Mark's little lizard tongue busts out, sticks to the piece of paper they were like jotting everything down on. Then he's like, "Oh guys, I got a stomachache, I gotta leave." And they're like, "All right, man, see you later." And then he walks out with a Facebook for him, the formula. I mean, like I told you, ad hominem attack on the way. And I could just see that little lizard bastard, or lizard looking bastard, do some stupid shit like that. But hey, like I said, ad hominem, not exactly my best moment. Nor my funniest joke.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, if someone comes to you with an idea, I'm definitely getting deplatformed now. But like, if someone comes with you an idea, like, let's say I come to Chad with like this great, like, I don't know, like, car wash idea. I'm like, man, I really freaking like this idea, like ins and outs, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hey man, like, do you want to help me, like, get this thing off the ground? You're like, yeah, sure. And Chad disappears and creates this giant car wash, like to the T to what I said, but just made it better. And all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, he didn't steal it. Like, what do you mean? Like these guys came to him and was like, hey, we have an idea as far as an online social media platform. Can you help us out with it? And he just disappeared and made his own thing,
Hey man, when you got to keep your shady points up, you got to keep them up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, screw it. If you're going to be one of the what is he? He's upper end of the billionaires. He's up there.
Oh, yeah, he's up there.
I'm not exactly sure what his ranking is worldwide in his wealth, but I will say that it sure as hell can buy a whole lot of like flies and shit and some of those perches to hang out on. So anyway, again, I'm not done with the ad hominem attacks. It may be a sign of lacking intelligence or even possibly an exhausted mind, but I don't care. He sucks. Mark Zuckerberg. All right, I got nothing else to say about it. I'm just going to sound like an absolute bitter ex-girlfriend over here if I keep going.
It's true. I mean, talking about crypto, Chad, I mean, we had a little crypto epidemic, I would call it today, in the form of Dogecoin. So, like, I'm at work and everyone's like, Dogecoin is blowing up. And for those who don't know, like Dogecoin is this meme crypto that literally has zero value. Like there's infinite amount of it. Like it's the market cap is like gigantic. Like you'll never hit that amount of Dogecoin. And here it is going like 400% up in 1 minute. I mean, it's just it's hard to bear. Like I don't get like where we're at. Like everyone, like the internet is so powerful, social media is so powerful that we're over here buying like bags of air and we're people are making like thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars off of it. It's insane. It blows my mind, Chad, actually, that if I'm going to be completely honest, I'm glad everyone made money. If you made money on it, I recommend you pulling your money out. This is all for entertainment purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor, but if you have not bought it yet, do not buy Dogecoin, okay? Because this is what we call a pump and dump. This is a build it up, and if more people can share I'm making money on Dogecoin, then more people will buy it. Did you have any Dogecoin, Chad?
I plead fifth.
You plead the fifth. Chad pleads the fifth on that.
Yep.
He pleads the fifth.
You know what? You can infer what you want to infer out of that. I plead the fifth because it's none of y'all goddamn business. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm feeling a little sore over here on this topic, so maybe we should just roll over and change the sheets. I will say that there are some very interesting things whenever it comes to cryptocurrency. I actually, back in 2012, I want to say, I had a client. His name is Tim. We were in session, and he said to me, he goes, I've heard this new thing. He's like, have you heard anything about Bitcoin?
Oh God.
No, I haven't. And he gave me the overall, they just kind of like got me up to par with it a little bit, just the introduction. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, you know what? I don't really trust crypto concepts, especially back in 2012. And he's like, look, he goes, you can get in on it right now. It was like $15 or $20. I want to say it was $20 at the time. And you can get in on it now and, get a coin, like $20 for a coin. And I'm like, I don't see it. Like, it just wasn't convincing for me to get it, So I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right. And he's like, yeah, I'm thinking maybe I'll get a couple thousand, maybe $10,000 worth or something like that. And I'm like, God damn, it must be nice. Back in 2012, that was a bit of money for me. And then he's like, yeah, so I don't know if he actually ended up doing it or not, but I will say that now it's been years and years of me looking back going, well, Cindy, it's one and the same. Cindy asked, what's the difference between crypto and Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. They just call
what's that? It's the creator. So every crypto that has ever been built has built off of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was the first one to come out with the blockchain technology, which is really all that crypto is made upon. So think of crypto as it's the god of crypto. Like everything that has ever been created that is crypto, like Bitcoin is the Mac Daddy of them all. And Chad, if your guy, your client would have, if he made that investment and kept it, he would have made $30,500,000 today.
He put $10,000 into Bitcoin in 2012.
Oh, I knew when you were like, oh, this guy told me to buy Bitcoin, like even inside of me, I was like, oh my God. Yeah. I would have been like, here's, you know what, man, just put 1,000 on it. Like put 1,000. You'd be a millionaire right now.
Yeah. It's insane. If I would have known, I would have actually gotten rid of my kidney for a good reason.
How much can I get for this? Can I get Bitcoin for this?
I will say this, local pawn shops don't actually take organs, so don't go in and offer when you're on hard times. If you're feeling a little Amy Winehouse-ish, check into rehab for real. Don't sing about it. Anyway, all right, moving on. That's a little embarrassing. Okay. Anything else on Bitcoin? Before I have to sit here and just consider that sometimes you take the right path in life and sometimes you just wreck into the wall. And Bitcoin was me wrecking into the wall. Okay. I'm like, you know what? I need a Subway sandwich. And he's like, well, you could get a Bitcoin. And I'm like, a Bitcoin ain't going to satisfy my tum-tum. Not then. And it was Subway. So bad decisions twice over. All right.
That's hilarious. It's so true. Like, I didn't even know what it was. But like now, like, oh God. Yeah. That's tough. That's tough. It was Fugazi back then. I mean, you had to go to like some guy and like download it on your computer. It wasn't like you just got an app and you transitioned your money from your bank account to the app and you buy it. It was kind of tough back then. You had to like write like a money order and like mail it in. All kinds of crazy.
You had to use Nicolas Cage, and then he went out and there's like this like movie fucking marathon. He had your money in his pocket. But hopefully, they used it back in the day like a homing pigeon of a sort, and or a Pony Express, and he eventually gets your money over there. So maybe, or a comic book that's not worth what he pays for. Whatever. Let's not go down the Nicolas Cage route. We'll just move away from that subject, like I never mentioned it.
Right. So
kind of like Friday night.
Get this, Chad. 11 consecutive months of private job growth in the state of Florida at 32,900 jobs gained since last month.
Did you see the death toll too? Oh my God.
Slow.
It is like it's not even a pandemic. Oh, it's crazy. Fucking jackasses. Yes, open state. Florida is what the United States used to be. You know, and Governor DeSantis, God damn, that's a hell of a good governor. So solid job performance. He's like you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if we find out DeSantis is related to Trump. I wouldn't be like pull off the mask and there's like a clone of Trump.
They're very
No.
close friends. I think he used to
Yeah.
be his lawyer, right? Like DeSantis worked for Trump in some way. Actually, Trump talks about it all the time. It's actually super hilarious when he narrates like, you know, DeSantis's idea to run for governor. He like came. He's actually at the rally. He told this story. Like he was like, "Oh, DeSantis came to me. It was like, hey, you know, I kind of want to run for governor." And Trump was like, "Well, I don't know if people really like you that much, you know, Ron, but you can go ahead. I'll endorse you." And here he is. He's the governor. Typical Trump kind of answer, you know. I don't know if you're going to make it, but okay, we'll you know, we'll do it.
Could you imagine if the other guy would have won? Oh my God. Yeah, we would be like a little California right now.
What was his name? Do you remember that dude's name?
Some dumbass. I think
Yeah,
I'm mispronouncing it.
What they?
Is it French? Some dumbass? Let me see his name. Oh well, my phone's in use right now. I can't Google it. Oh, and I've got a laptop in front of me, but quite honestly, I'm a lazy fuck. So I'm that lazy. Like, oh, I just can't go. Whatever. No, I think I'm mispronouncing his name though. Some dumb fuck. But yeah, he sucked. He was horrible.
I mean,
We pulled him up on the previous episode. We talked about him. But if we could only imagine, like we've had solid job performance. We're in a state that has a dominant economic value in tourism. And people are afraid to move around. And they're being told that if you live in Florida, you don't get vaccinated, you don't abide by the dictator of Joe Biden, then you're done. You're not going to travel. There's threats and all the rest of this stuff, and it's going to be the epicenter of the country with the pandemic and everything. Nope, it was your states that acted like you're good little boys, like California with Gavin Newsom and Cuomo. Those two, New York and California. Yep, there's a reason why those states are bankrupt. There's a reason why those states are absolute trash. Not about the people. It's about their government. Who's running it? And AOS is out of New York too. So, I mean, it kind of says a lot. How about that though, by the way, just a little sidebar. Who wants to be remembered for being a hoaxer, especially a hate crime hoaxer? That man will never wash that sin away, ever, for the rest of his life. Dude, he is tainted. Juicy.
Which one? The guy in the TV show, right? Empire?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that we really haven't heard a lot about that either. I mean, have you heard anything as far as like, did he get any charges filed against him?
No, they dropped everything.
Oh.
Fox, they're what is it? Was it the district attorney? Fox, he dropped all charges.
Really?
She dropped everything. No, or reduced it so much that it was practically dropping it. We'd have to look it back up because with this smooth confidence of space dust. Did I say it right that time? I did. All right. Smooth confidence. He may or may not have had his charges dropped, but he certainly didn't actually have to do the time for the crime because he's part of the inside. All right. Moving on, because
though, like the whole point is to actually, you know, get things better off for people, right? I mean, so if he's making these accusations as far as hate crime goes, as far as you know, like, oh, you know, I was assaulted, and ultimately that ends up being, you know, a fabrication of the truth, a complete lie as far as what happened. That's got to paint some kind of picture as far as like who's actually out there trying to, you know, provide some kind of betterment towards minorities. But we see on the news these people like making up things and just like false accusations, To me, it seems like, okay, well, if we actually wanted to better things, there would be, boots on the ground, that we'd be in the Black communities, we'd be in the Asian communities, we'd be in the Hispanic communities trying to make a difference. But instead, it just seems like there's a lot of people who just like to talk about it. They like to get, some kind of coverage on the matter instead of actually, addressing the matter.
Well, there are boots in the ground. They've got the little buckets and trying to get more money so that the one of the co-founders can buy multiple properties, including the last one in a predominantly white neighborhood, very upscale, for 104, or what is it, 1.4 million dollars. Sounds like, a true Marxist.
And what organization is this, Chad, by the way? Who
That
is this?
is our lovely BLM, Black Lives Matter. Yep. Black Lives Matter so much they'll never mention black on black crime. They're not in Chicago trying to stop the crime epidemic that's in, or what is called Chirac. They're doing nothing there. They are like Al Sharpton on steroids. They've learned how to manipulate people off of emotional language, and they have figured out how to make this a profit system, this profit machine. They make money all over the damn place. And they're not really showing where all the money's going unless you just watch their spending habits. So yeah, this co-founder has decided she was going to buy. She's actually bought 4 properties. One of the 4 is $1.4 million. And the area that she moved into, last statistics I saw was 76% Caucasian. So that doesn't tell you something about what her preferences are. And how serious she actually takes Black Lives Matter and the horrendous events that happen to some of the Black minorities. She didn't give a shit. You can tell. As long as you keep spending money. Even New York's chapter, by the way, there's chapters or franchises, whichever way you want to look at it. They have been calling for an audit to find out where all the money's going, because they're not getting it in New York, but yet she's got all this money she can spend. But don't forget, every time you hear a Democrat breathe, you'll hear racism come out.
Sometimes there's some truth to that. I mean, like, I have a friend who works for Hillsborough County Fire Department, and me and him were talking a couple days ago, and he was like, "You wouldn't believe the stuff that they don't put on the news." Like, he said he was in Tampa, and there was 11 people shot and killed in the city in Tampa, in a predominantly gang neighborhood, and there was absolutely zero coverage on it. Like, it didn't even make the news. So, like, wouldn't that justify as a mass shooting? I mean, we had 1 person shot, 5 people injured not too long ago, and that was labeled a mass shooting. But here we have in our own state something 30 minutes away from me right now that was actually 11 people were killed, but because it didn't fit the media's idea of what should be covered, it never hit the news. And I feel like it's completely misleading. I think it's unfair, and I think it's just being crooked. Like, if the whole point is to try to fix things, then let's start addressing the problem and not just covering up the problem with something that we want more people to think's the actual problem, so then those people can continue to do the narrative that they've been pushing this whole time.
Yes. Well, I want to clean something up. When I said earlier, every time a Democrat breathes, you hear racism. It's when you hear a Democrat politician speak. I have not, there's only one Democrat politician that I know of that does not speak about hate crime concepts or racial inequality and all the rest of this. Only one. I don't have his name on top of my head, but I believe he's in Georgia. That's it, just one. All the rest of them will always say something is racist. Something is, there's inequality. Now, they're all saying the same damn thing now. Now, as far as if you're a registered Democrat, I'm not speaking about you. I'm talking more about the politicians. So I can make sure I'm really clear and clean about that, so that I don't look like I'm some sort of, foaming at the mouth, lunatic, freaking Republican coming after you. Again, to nauseum, because I've had to have an argument earlier this week about the fact I'm a non-party affiliate, which means that I will vote wherever I feel is the most salient and logical and safe and long-term beneficial for our country. As of right now, I don't know any Democrat that I would actually support. And that's because of what their party has done, not because of me. I support more the Republican Party right now. Some of the libertarians, although that particular party right now is also just confusing as shit. But that's it. So that piece has been said. Now, I will say that the way that the current administration and also mainstream media prefers to report things is, I will say that they will likely bring up that shooting that Joshua was talking about in Tampa whenever they want to go against, when they want to go after gun laws, and they want to push new gun laws. They'll probably bring it up then, but they'll likely change the details so that it does look like it also fell into a hate crime value versus just black on black crime or minority on minority. It's likely that they'll end up doing something like that because we all know they love cherry picking and misleading and giving partial information, or the, what is that? Homeopathy of truth. It's a good way of looking at it, by the way. Are you familiar with homeopathy?
No.
So homeopathy, what they do with that is they take something that has a medicinal value, an herb or something like that, and they'll put it in water. And then they'll set another thing of water next to it and then say that it has transferred its medicinal properties into that water. Sometimes it's the water that it's actually submerged in, and then sometimes it just so happens that that water was sitting next to the water that had that particular supplement in it or that product. That is predominantly what homeopathy is. So a homeopath and things like that, they're not allowed to actually practice in the state of Florida for good reason. I have studied a bit of it. It has been several years since I've really looked into it. But yeah, naturopaths and homeopaths aren't allowed to practice in Florida because they can't validate enough scientific backing, and or they don't have the right lobbyists. I don't know. I mean, I could imagine seeing somebody walking around eating bars and trying to deal with, the next powder they need to put in their dreadlocks in order to try to get their, the local legislator to accept some money from them. I don't know. I'm being quite a bit facetious about this, but at the same time, point of it is, I would say that it's their version of truth in mainstream media is like a homeopathic truth. It is somewhere in the vicinity of something true. It's not actually true. It's in the vicinity of it. Like somebody said a true fact in the room, and then we came up with this bullshit. And so it's true enough because we came up with it in a room that somebody told something was true. Yeah. Somebody quick, say that's blue. And they pointed the blue ceiling or some shit. And they're like, all right, now make up as much as you want. Everybody feel better about yourself. You told the truth today. Homeopathic truth. Yeah. I went on a little bit of a rant there. I hope you guys liked it. Tune in next time for another rant. Doge.
Doge, right? God, that is what Doge is. Don't get me started, Chad. You cannot.
No, I am. I'm going to poke the hell out of that bear. But first,
Doge, that's my word. Like I'm here. I'm like, okay, I study. Like I try to do like the best I can with my investment strategies. I think I've picked some good ones that have like some great long-term value. I'm like super happy with where I am. And all of a sudden this fake coin just skyrockets out of nowhere. And all these people are making a bunch of money. And I'm getting texted like, hey, do you have any Dogecoin? Like, do you have any? I'm just like, what do you mean? Like, do I have water running? Yes, I have water running. See, look, see what you did there? You just.
I know. I told you, I poked the bear instead of giggling like the frickin' the little snuggles on the fabric softener. You just went at it like an angry little grizzly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like my new button, and I think that's it honestly has something to do with our society as a whole right now. Because the next topic I want to get into, and nor is it any political related or something that we have talked about in the show a lot. Maybe I have, not necessarily Chad. But tomorrow is the Ben Askren versus Jake Paul, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a fight. I want it to be a fight. But if you're unfamiliar with this, so Jake Paul is a YouTuber, right? He's been on YouTube for a long time. He's boxed a couple nobodies, 2 YouTubers and an ex-basketball player. So no one who really has any kind of fight experience. And somehow he's been able to build himself into this like prize fighter. So Ben Askren, who is he's a multi-time NCAA champion wrestler, an Olympic wrestler. He was 19-2 in mixed martial arts, and for prior to his his retirement, he was 19-0. I mean, he didn't lose for like 12 years. So this guy is like a fighter, right? He's actually not a very good boxer whatsoever, but he's a competitor. He's an Olympian. And we have him, right? This elite athlete now fighting this YouTuber, okay? And it could very well be the biggest pay-per-view in history, okay? When you say that out loud, so we got like, let's say we have Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather, Jr. fighting, two of the arguably one of the best boxers of all time. And, definitely, what's his face? Floyd Mayweather Jr., excuse me. But I mean, we have two high level boxers competing with one another. And we have, a YouTuber and a wrestler boxing, and it could make more money than that fight would make,
Interesting.
Don't worry about what we're talking about.
All right, there we go. It's recording, baby. It's recording, baby.
So
Yeah,
like
what the ring name is going to be for Jake, Ryan, Paul, whoever the fuck it is. It's whoever the fuck cares fighting in the blue corner.
Right? I mean, literally, there was people. So the fight's in Atlanta, and I really wish, like, I wanted to go because my mom works for Delta, so she might have some like ticket hookups, but they're not. There's no fans, so I was like, damn, like I really want to go to that fight. And like there was someone who posted, like it was like Ben Askren posted it on his Instagram. It was like a sign, and it said, Ben Askren boxing some guy, no cover charge, and then the day. Yeah, it's complete. It's like we have like a Disney Channel actor who thinks that he wants to fight like Conor McGregor, like, bro, like I got it. Like, so let me just get it out there so I don't sound like I'm some kind of hater. It is absolutely amazing what these two Paul brothers have been able to do with social media, and the fact that they're like not really that good at the things that they do in the video, but they're like really, really good marketers, like really good marketers. I mean, like Jake Paul, or his brother Logan Paul, was supposed to box Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match. And you go on, Logan Paul's podcast, and he's talking about how he's this really good boxer, but his record is 0-1-1. So like he's never won a match. So we have a guy who's never won a match that was scheduled but then got canceled to box the greatest boxer of all time, who's 50-0. When you say it out loud, it doesn't make sense, people. But guess I'm watching it. I've been talking about it for months since this Ben Askren Jake Paul fight has been released. I know, Chad, I think you're a little bit of a fight fan, right?
Yeah, I've done a bit of training. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll watch a fight. I'll watch one. I'm not going to take out my phone and just sit there and be like a little bitch niche all up like it's a street thing, World Star. But I'll sit there and be like, yeah, it's a good fight, man. You want a beer?
Yeah.
That's how I play with it. Yeah. Yeah. So I can appreciate a good fighter because I've done quite a bit of fighting myself. From mixed martial arts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Aikido, Goju Ryu karate. And then of course I'm 1 in 6 boys. So we did a bit of scrapping there too. And, the neighborhood, so I got all my teeth. So if that tells you anything. No, well, except that, no, that's none of y'all's business.
Yeah, it's true. Like both Chad and myself, like I'm a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I did, a lot of wrestling in middle school and high school. So like Chad and I both have a lot of mixed martial arts experience, so to speak. So we're somewhat, educated enough to talk about this topic, but it's still mind blowing that we have like this elite Olympic athlete that is competing against this YouTuber, and that will ultimately be probably the highest pay-per-view of all time. I mean, it just shows that the power of social media and how if you can, build a brand, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, which is kind of what I want to lead into this topic. I mean, Chad, not just in sports, maybe you can do a sport and reality, right? Just society in general. Is stuff like this a good thing or is it a bad thing?
As far as like the way that, like, to make sure I'm clear on the question, you're talking about the fight itself with the Paul, or with whichever frickin' Paul brother, or are we talking about just in general, like the sport on society?
That's a good question. So I guess I would go ahead and say maybe my opinion just on the fight itself. So I think actually, as far as boxing, as far as sports go, this is actually a really good thing. Because like if you're a boxing fan, I mean, there really hasn't been too much to be excited about in the last 20 years. I mean, maybe not 20 years, probably pretty close to 20 years. But boxing as a sport has actually kind of died off with the emergence of mixed martial arts. So
Yeah.
it's actually a really good thing, I feel like, in the sports world. But as far as maybe you can answer the question on, do you think that someone who really doesn't have a lot of credentials as far as a combat athlete goes, do you think that it's bad that there could be someone else, maybe not in a sports realm, that has the same kind of influence on society and on people in general that social media can produce?
I would say that's a negative, because if you think about, like, we have all of these YouTubers and these social influencers that are, they learn to fabricate a reality. And what happens to the people that witness a fabricated reality is they start to model a behavior that isn't even real. They start modeling a lot of values that that person's only projecting. It's not really who they are. And then once you start modeling behind behaviors like that, you are following suit with something that doesn't have a tried and true reality from the person or the source that you're getting it from. So we have somebody who says, okay, well, this person can fight, and we can see that they can fight, but the guy obviously has some pretty raw talent. But at the same time, if you listen to the way how he conducts himself and watches total behaviors, he treats a lot of people with sociopathic tendencies. From what I see, he can be pretty reckless about things. People's well-being is usually at a lower standing than safety. When it comes to their safety is at a lower standing than the value of entertainment they think is going to be produced based off the video they're making. So we're collapsing the people that follow that with people watching this one person fight, which both brothers fight, right?
Yes.
Logan and Jake.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have all these people that follow them. I know more about Jake Paul than I do Logan Paul, but it's not a lot more. I don't know much about either brother, although when I did watch them, I'm like, this is absolutely just a parody of human beings. This is what happens when somebody has money but has no maturity. And they just act absolutely foolish. They have the means to really hurt people, and they actually have really hurt people. And then you give them another degree of a spotlight for people to emulate, to idolize. So I would say that it's a bad thing in that sense, although this is more of the American dream. And the American dream is that you can create the life that you want to live, work hard for it. And that's the American dream. You can have whatever you want, work hard for it. Now, sadly, though, we're in an untried area that has a lot of immaturity because it's so new to the American industry, to our economic system. We don't have, 20 years ago, we had this particular influencer having this much experience, and they're kind of, the old school is navigating the new school. Old school is 5 years old now, 6 years old, 10 years old, not 30, not 40. It has little maturity in it. And it evolves so quickly, it's hard to hold the same classification. If you came on the scene as in 2008 as an influencer, you're not the same influencer, or that was not the same kind of influencers we have now. And then we have multiple platforms to do it off of. So when you ask that question, my position is it's not a good thing because it doesn't have mature guidance. And as it is right now, if you can look at the social unrest, not to change subjects, but look at the social unrest, right? It's more popular now to fight with cops than it is to just comply. Now, does it mean we've never complied before? Absolutely not. We've always had some sector in some particular group of individuals, and it's not a race-based thing. It's a particular type of individuals' mentalities that will fight with cops. I myself am not one of those people. I'll fight with a cop in a courtroom, but I'm not doing it on the street. So, but now we have a popular rise where people think that that's a way to actually get recognition to develop some sort of credibility to stand up against injustice. If they did not want credibility, they wouldn't record it. That's one element. I got to take it back. There's one other thing to add. They may record it for safety, but if you listen to what's said and how they behave when they're recording, and this is people that are fighting or going against cops, those individuals are talking in a way that the cop is wrong from the very beginning and that this is an unjust situation. They immediately position themselves in a narrative that when you watch it, you think the cop's wrong as well. And that gives some sort of credibility, some sort of value to who they are as a person. And it may end up getting them money if it goes sideways, right? Things like that. So, but that's influenced by social media predominantly. It has had an influence by music and music industry for many decades, but nothing like it is right now. And especially in the last, since 2012 really is when we started to see a lot of an uprising in this. So as that goes, I would say relate it back to the Paul brothers. They're not mature enough to help direct their audience in a way that their audience won't hurt themselves, because they fight with each other, their friends, and then they go off and they meet the wrong one. You go meet the wrong one that's having the wrong day and find out somebody who normally would practice restraint that can hurt you really badly isn't practicing restraint today because they're having a really bad day. And if they get caught up, they're not going to practice that restraint. You may not make it out of that with being the same person you were before you started it, but you're not going to win that one. I know that much. I'm not going to win every fight. I fought enough to know that. I'm sure you can agree with that, Joshua. You fought enough to know you're not going to win every fight.
Yeah.
I already know you show the respect you want to be given. Don't cross the line because you don't know what the other person knows. And since mixed martial arts and all these, a lot of martial arts, but mixed martial arts predominantly has become so popular, you don't know who knows what.
It's true.
It's no longer do you have a specific look, because I've had some of the most unsuspecting people in martial arts classes with me where I'm like, and then once I start rolling with a person, I look at them like, yeah, they don't look like a stereotypical tough person. Then you roll with them, you're like, I'm wrong.
Right. Like how did you do that?
Yeah.
I completely agree. Like,
or even how did you take that? Like, how did you take those hits? How are you still standing? How are you, like, all of that, right? The whole thing. So anyway, all right, go ahead, Josh. Sorry about that.
I completely agree. And I love the comparisons you made to, certain aspects of social media. And we're kind of picking on the Paul brothers right now because of this fight that's upcoming. But if you I think that bleeds off into what social media does to people as a whole, right? It makes you, I think Elon Musk said that it gives you a snapshot of someone's reality. And maybe you don't really understand how that person feels outside of whatever picture or post they felt, but it can definitely create some kind of feeling, psychologically that makes you think that somehow in your life you're doing things wrong, and you build upon that narrative and try to better whatever you saw like in your past. And it's completely true, because we've been given this gift in a sense, right? Where I was talking to someone today that I had interaction with, and I was like, think about all the people that in the past, that let's say 1700s, that in order to come up with the stuff we know now as far as like technology, they had to think their way to it, right? There was no internet, there was no Google, there was no instant information like we have now. They had to psychologically use their brain power to come to that conclusion that they did. And we are just giving it on a silver platter to where the world is yours, right? And everything that you could possibly imagine you can achieve. But honestly, the only thing that's really dependent upon is your mindset. And so now we have, which going back to, running into the wrong guy, I really hope that Jake Paul runs into the wrong guy tomorrow and just gets his ass whooped. Ben Askren is I'm a big fan of Ben Askren. I wrestled in high school. He's always been my favorite mixed martial arts fighter. So it's funny how my guy is kind of going up against the guy that I completely despise based on, like Chad said, the clickbait, so to speak. We have some random guy that's never boxed before in Jake's backyard. He just beats the shit out of him. just stuff that's unethical if you come from that mixed martial arts or that combat sports background, to where if you can instantly tell whether someone knows what they're doing or not. And really it's up to your own integrity to decide whether or not you cause serious harm on them or you just have fun with it. And he completely just cuts out the humanity part of it and just goes for that clickbait and just, beats the shit out of someone who doesn't deserve it. So, we've talked about this topic a little bit. I think we're gonna bury it. We got one more, but I really, really hope that karma's a bitch, and I hope that it comes back around and bites these people that just, that cash for clout mentality, that I'm gonna win based on other people's demise, and I hope that karma bites them in the ass. So you know what I'm gonna be doing, Chad, tomorrow at 8 p.m. I feel like Triller should send me some kind of a check, even if it's for like $50, because I've hyped this thing on my social medias. So yeah, I hope I'm right.
I want to add something to that. Obviously, I mean, you always have that where you see somebody needs a lesson. Hierarchical placement has a role, that we all have this desire that we at times bully people into behaving more adult-like or more socially acceptably, or acceptable. So we can go down the trail of the bullying or anti-bullying and society nonsense that has been pushed into school systems and now is bled into our social media and our personal lives and professional lives. We'll get into that another time, but obviously with the our viewers asking for that particular conversation, I do want to say, though, with great power comes great responsibility. That is not something I take lightly. So we have the world of information available at our fingertips. We have opportunities that our ancestors never had. But our ancestors did have to go through, just like Joshua said, there's a vetting process to get to the point where you have the ability to utilize the information that you have, which knowledge and action is power, not knowledge is power. Knowledge is not power without action, because otherwise it's trivial. So with that, once you have all this information at your hands, and then you have the ability to execute on that, if you're not mature enough to handle that particular amount of information, that information may be actually giving you a kind of like a little Super Mario bounce, double bounce kind of thing to get you up and over all of the trials and tribulations necessary to come to that understanding in our existence. We skipped over all of that because you had it at your hands and you didn't need to go through the hardships to get there. Once you get there, you lack the responsibility and or the respect of what it took to understand what is now present. And now you act immaturely with that knowledge and cause yourself more issues in life. So there's a lot of that goes into this. And whenever I say with great power comes great responsibility, that's a big piece of it. So I'm not going to go too far into that because I know we're running low on time, but I do want to get this other subject with Joshua. There's one other thing I do want to just touch on real quick. There was a supposed hate crime that took place in a suburban or some sort of suburban setting where this young black guy or some black guy was walking through, or minority or whatever preference, so that nobody gets butthurt over the way I identify this individual, was walking through this community, and a 40-something, I believe he's 42-year-old drill sergeant, came out and told him to leave, that he didn't belong there. And just like media, and why I fucking hate the media so much, I cannot tell you how much I hate them. They cut the fucking film. So anyway, this kid's walking through, or this guy's walking through, and this drill sergeant comes out and tells him he needs to leave. Turns out, from what they did not show in the video, is that this particular person was trying to pick a fight, bully and push around another girl that lives in this subdivision or this area in this gated community. I believe it's a gated community. And he was trying to fight her, bully her, and just have his way with whatever he wanted. And she didn't agree with what he said. I don't know the subject of what was talked about, but he accosted this woman the day before. I believe it's the day before. It was within a 3-day window from my best understanding. And so they caught him walking through the neighborhood again and told him he doesn't belong there because nobody could account for the fact of whether or not he lived there. And he's telling the guy that he lives there. Nobody could account for it. So he's telling him to leave. The guy's just like basically doing the punk thing. And the drill sergeant, basically now Black Lives Matter is in their neighborhood. They're, shouting at them. They're doing all kinds of stuff. They're picketing and protesting peacefully, which anytime you hear that from the media, they're damaging and destroying shit. So they've got this going on, and they're trying to absolutely destroy this man because he stood up for one of the girls in the neighborhood that got assaulted or accosted by this gentleman prior to that. So we have so much wrong with this country right now. And I will tell you this, and I will tell you often, the media has a major role in that. And I don't care which one. I'll put Fox News in the lineup too. Not always. They seem to do a little bit better most of the time. But overall, yeah, mainstream media, they're to blame. So, all right, enough about that subject for right now. If you have anything to say about that, put it in the comment section. But we're going to jump back over to Joshua because I know we've got a very small amount of time. Got one more subject.
Yeah, let's jump into the, building off of the, an incident, right? There was a shooting not too long ago this week in Chicago that involved a 13-year-old boy by an officer. The media released a video on it. The video it's hard to tell from what I saw. It looked like the guy put his hands up and the officer shot him. But most of the body camera is actually them trying to revive this individual and saying stay with me, you're going to be okay. So yeah, it's I guess to me it leads into this topic that we've been talking about now almost a year, and I guess it's the police brutality. Now I don't necessarily think that there is an issue with police. I think there's an issue with police training and police funding. It's all the incidents that we've talked about, not in the not too distant future with police altercations that involved a death of a civilian. In my eyes, have been completely avoidable. Chad and I have been talking about martial arts training and all these other different ways that you can learn to subdue one person into complying with what you want. And I feel like that's something that the police departments have been missing. I mean, for example, the incident in Atlanta at the Wendy's where there was 2 police officers and one guy who was drunk and they couldn't, subdue him and handle the situation, really goes back to my feelings on that police just really need more training. I mean, even, myself, where, I have, in my opinion, a very substantial amount of mixed martial art experience. If you give me one drunk guy and I have to control him, there's very little chance of he's getting away from me. Small, like super small chance he's getting away from me. Even just if you give him a high school wrestler, there's very, very small chance that individual is getting away. And I think it all stems back to that we need a lot more police training and prevention. As Chad and I have talked about in the show before, normally defunding leads to actually having more lethal weapons on hand instead of actually learning how to deter the situation non-lethally.
Agree completely with that. As far as if we reduce the training and we start pushing this woke ideology, women can do the same thing as men. If you have a physical standard that you need to keep up with, if that standard's lower because you have fewer people that meet the demographic you want pushed through, they're more likely to reach to lethal means. So if the person is afraid to wrestle or to physically handle somebody, by the way, tasers rarely work properly. They have a low effectiveness. It's better than nothing, but it has a low effectiveness. There's a lot of reasons why they do not work properly. If you don't get both barbs in on the release, the trigger pull, and then you have to make, if you don't get both barbs in, you don't get the response in the body that you're looking for. Some people just are not as susceptible to it. There's a lot of variables that fall into that. So we cannot defund the police if we want them to behave or to be able to be safer with their overall job performance. One thing. Second thing, we're obsessed with focusing on the police officers. We're so obsessed with it. The Wendy's thing. Tell me if you had just witnessed and you're still fresh off of the George Floyd incident and you have somebody who has passed out drunk in a Wendy's parking lot or in a Wendy's drive-through line. You're so drunk you pass out in the drive-through line and you're worried about the optics of the situation. Those 2 officers tried to treat him like a buddy. They did everything they could to be easy with him so that they did not overexcite him. They tried hard not to let that escalate. If you listen to their conversations on their body worn cameras, you look at their testimonies, you go through the whole fucking thing, you find out they used kit gloves when they should have manhandled him. They didn't, and he got the upper hand. So he threw one over onto his head, neck, shoulders, took the taser from one of them, and as he ran away, he pointed it back and attempted to fire it, because the laser pointer does not go off until you pull the trigger enough that it at least turns on the laser. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to discharge at that point, as far as I know, but I do know you have to pull the trigger enough for the laser to tell you where your target is. With a stun gun, you can see the laser clearly go with the Wendy's situation. That gentleman he used more than force. He was eluding the police officers. Don't forget, a police officer's job is to protect the public. And when you have somebody who has been drunk in line at the Wendy's, I don't know how many people have actually had to show up to a vehicle accident where it was a drunk driver and killed somebody. If you've never been to that and you're not taking that into consideration, and then you're going to say those officers are wrong for what happened there because they didn't fucking arrest him properly, and that they resorted to lethal means. They shot him in the back as he was running away. That man could have killed your loved one by being drunk and driving, first off. Secondly, he was running away from officers. He didn't want to get arrested again because he was on his way back to prison if he did. And that would have ended up costing him more time. He was a desperate man trying to get away, and he used a non-lethal weapon from the police against the police. They could have been trained better, but at the same time, the media needs to get off their goddamn issue about making all officers horrible and then making them the enemy of the state, and they're hunting these innocent people when these people, some of them are not innocent, but the media doesn't give a shit because people follow that. They tune in, they watch the advertisements that go between their segments. They get more money because you follow what they're doing. Just like this little 13-year-old that gets shot. My question is, if we're going to talk about the training of the police officers, let's talk about the relationship of their parent or parents and their parents' relationship with each other. There's a reason why some people do not act like this, and there's reasons why people do act like this. And if you're going to have people acting out, fighting cops and all the rest of this stuff, never fought a cop in my life. But I will tell you this again, if I have to fight a cop, I'll do it in court. Not going to do it in the street. I'll be damned if I do it in the street, because I'm not going to be one of those statistics. I'm not going to be one of those people that get killed by being an asshole and doing things that would actually increase the likelihood the cop would have to resort to killing me and then become an unknown. Because let's face it, if you're not of the right demographics, if you're not of the right lead stories, you're not going to make the news anyway. So as far as all that goes, we cannot take money away from the cops and expect them to be able to do this. By the way, have you heard about any of these social workers being killed by showing up to try to handle domestic situations and other police call situations where they feel that a social worker would actually be better off? Because it has happened. They're not bringing it up. There was one social worker that was stabbed to death, and I believe it was it's either Michigan or New York. And I'll find it and I'll get that information. Now you could Google search it and find out too, or maybe DuckDuckGo, because Google sucks. And my dogs are getting riled up now because they feel the same kind of passion about this. So let's also talk about the citizen responsibility. Nobody wants to talk about that. No, don't fight with cops. Don't try to resist arrest. If their job is to arrest you, they have to arrest you. Their job is to detain you. They have to detain you. Their job is to protect the public at large, the whole. And if you want to act as a person that is out of the interest of the public as a whole, being able to peacefully live their life, you need to be reduced from the exposure to those people. But no, the bleeding hearts on that far left or the left side don't give a shit about any of that. They just care about being right. I feel for every officer in this country that decide to go into that direction, or that wants to be a police officer, especially in these places that are run by these fucked up mayors and governors that don't care for them, don't have their back. So I am a little charged up over the subject because there's so many details that go into it. This little 13-year-old had a gun on him. What he was doing with that gun prior, and up until the point they shot him.
Is that confirmed?
He had a gun. They actually have it. They picked it up. It's in evidence. It's a Glock. He had a Glock.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see what actually pans out as far as, because all you really can see in the video, just from first glance, I saw, both hands up in the air. And, Chad and I agree on a lot of things most of the time, but we also disagree on some things. And I guess from the perspective of the officer, if he did see a gun, I guess we'll wait and see what happens as far as, the investigation goes, court proceedings, et cetera. So I don't want to speculate something I don't know. So if there was a gun involved, then, that's really up to that officer to make the best decision he can in that situation. But I guess we'll wait and see what happens. But vice versa, again, if it's me and it's a 13-year-old, like, I don't need my gun. Like, and if there is no gun, let's play devil's advocate here. And let's say there is no gun. I don't need my gun. I'm going to wrestle your ass and you're going to be, handcuffed. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens with this development. I love how we touched upon that there's multiple issues that go into the stuff that maybe media doesn't really project the way that they should. And that, we should really look at the whole problem, not necessarily just whatever is hot at the time or whatever, is easy clickbait that can, cause more, more masses to go and view this content, which I really think sometimes that's kind of the case, not necessarily, deleting the content in the sense of, destroying the problem, which I feel like is ultimately what all these people preach, but we never really see that come to fruition. We kind of just see, that click for chaos, as I call it. If there was a perfect utopia world, then the media would have nothing to talk about. And if we can ultimately get to that point, things will be much better. But I really don't see that, coming forth to fruition anytime soon.
Yeah. I will say, if the gun's there, you ain't wrestling that kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And-
If the
and
gun
also-
was present, if the gun is present and that becomes fact, like I said, I don't want to speculate on the situation, or I don't 100% know all the details on it. If there is a gun, obviously gun versus me, gun's going to win. And I guess we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I have such a gripe over the media. They don't care. They just care they get ratings. They do not care how much they destroy this country. They just care that they're number one. That's all they care about. They're obsessed with it. Native Americans had the saying that the white man is blinded by greed. No, not really just saying the white man, the race shit, all that. They were talking about the colonists. Well, we're blind. These people, the mainstream media is blinded by greed. They just need to be right. They need to be number one. They will omit what's necessary so that they're not really lying. They just didn't cover the whole story so they can plead innocence. They have the information. They know it all. They know everything that they're not saying. And when we find out that they're not saying it, nobody holds them nobody holds them responsible. So with this, they don't care. They're going to put the information out. They're going to act like they're just spreading the news, but they're going to shit the frame for what they show you whenever they show you video footage. They're going to change it so they start the video at the right point that's going to make the biggest impact on the viewer. That's all that we're dealing with. This is insane that we've got to this point. The media is more of our enemy than anything else. Well, I can't say of anything else. They're a major part of our enemy because they're turning people against each other, and it's the goddamn media doing it. So as far as that goes, I am so beyond done with the fucking media. So with what they do, there's no honest journalism anymore, not in the mainstream categories. CNN just got busted from a girl on a Tinder date from their technical director that was out. Did you see any of that?
Mm-mm.
CNN Project Veritas they've gotten videos of this girl from Tinder went on a date with this guy, and he's talking about how they how they worked against Trump during the election to make him look feeble, did everything they could to make him look bad. They even fabricated the idea that he had some sort of illness, completely speculative, nothing valuable enough. They just put together panels. They kept the death count, or not the death count, the infection rate, and talked about death with the infection rate and acted like they were the same thing. They spread fear. They didn't bring up recovery rates. And even in the video, this guy said, well, if the recovery rates doesn't generate enough fear, we're not going to talk about it. Project Veritas, look it up. You can at least still find it on YouTube, where this girl from this Tinder date recorded this guy for hours. Just him talking about like all of what CNN did, how they helped. This guy doesn't believe that Trump would have been out of office had it not been for CNN. Because
Really?
the hit job that CNN did on it. Look it up. Project Veritas. They're talking about, and it's not. It's CNN's executive or technical director. He talks about all of that. Worth looking up. James O'Keefe is to CNN what Chris Hansen is to pedophiles. As soon as you hear his name or CNN hears his name, they're like, "Oh, God damn it!" Yeah, same
What's
thing
his
for
name?
his name is James O'Keefe.
Okay. Okay.
He's the founder of Project Veritas. He's
Okay.
actually a pretty funny guy, but he's not slapstick funny. He's clever funny. So when you watch his stuff, he's got a lot. CNN has been the biggest one because CNN's the biggest of the news stations overall. They've been doing like because they fabricate so much. Look him up, man. I'm telling you, look him up. Look up that video. Twitter just banned him because he went after CNN. He's not lost one lawsuit yet. He's suing the New York Times. He got past the motion to dismiss for slander, or I'm sorry, defamation against James O'Keefe. Got past it. Now they're going into discovery. So there's a pretty good chance New York Times is going to be in a bit of trouble because they made up a bunch of bullshit about Project Veritas. Same thing goes with CNN with this stuff. I'm telling you, look it up. It is absolutely worth it. When you watch it, it'll turn your stomach to realize that news station has misled so many people.
Well, being misled is like to be like misled, especially in this spectrum, I guess, so to speak, is it's in my opinion, it's criminal. Because I mean, think how much stuff has happened as far as like property damage, deaths, as far as like some situations in our nation's history in this past year and a half that have been misconstrued to the point to where the media has created this completely, Dogecoin narrative that is, that is the world, and that how some people have actually fallen into this trap to a sense where it's actually caused them either, maybe to, derail their life and like, so to speak, where they believe so hardcore in this narrative that they are going to, cut off friendships, cut off family. It's insane. And I feel like, again, I go back to my definition of what the media is supposed to be. They're supposed to be a public educator. They're not supposed to be a political platform, right? A political platform is what the political parties are supposed to do. And the media is then only supposed to show political parties information so that the masses, right, the people can make the best opinion they can based on whatever information they've been educated in. So we're now seeing, Fox included, right? It's not just CNN, like all the, mass media has become political platforms, and that's not really what their job's supposed to be. So, with that being said, the media sucks. I hope you guys enjoyed what we talked about today. Please tune in next week. We'll see what happens as far as, Ben Askren versus Jake Paul. Hopefully the world can get some freaking revenge. If you have Dogecoin now, this is for entertainment purposes only, but be very careful. Don't buy any more, and I think we're going to come out okay. I think we're going to be all right, Chad. I always end every episode with the night is always darkest just before the dawn. And Pony Boy, don't let them knock you off your horse. Let's do this damn thing. Just be beautiful, be yourself, and you're going to be all right.
You know what? You do bring a bit of sunshine and rainbows to the end of the episode. And I want to thank you for that, Joshua. You're fantastic with that. I get a little heated at times, and there's reasons for that. If you followed me on growing up in the wilds of suburbia, you'll see how the cool, calm, collected, intellectual side of me really kind of like reigns, supreme, or it just really comes out there. And then here we're talking about something that I've somewhat recently woke up to, and I just feel like I'm fired up over what's going on. So much so because it really does deserve to get upset enough to at least convey that I'm not just reading a headline. I care about this stuff. I care about the fact that, yeah, it sucks this 13-year-old boy was killed. But at the same time, if we omit all of what that little boy did to lead up to that point, you're never going to create a solution. If we get rid of the police, because we're trying to use that as a solution, as some of these idiots like Ilhan Omar, or I'm sorry, Rashida Tlaib is the one that's saying abolish them altogether. So if that were the case, I promise you there's going to be a lot more issues. Look at New York, look at Chicago, look at California, look at all the places they tried this, Michigan, where all they've tried to do is just take away the cops and replace them with whatever they're putting up. Look at it before you finally make your decision to cast a vote or to support these ideas. So with all that being said, I'm going to finish up my side of this. I have a lot more to say, but we've got limited time. Look for some shorter episodes in the near future. We're considering breaking it up a little bit and doing a few more, but a little more often. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. Joshua and I'll talk more about it too. But in the meantime, thanks for tuning in. This is Waking the People with your host, Sir Chad Everett Brochures. I'll give Joshua the Kraken, your Patriot McClendon, the final word, and then we are out, baby.
Well, it's been a great episode. We talked about some things we normally don't talk about. It was nice to have a little bit, of changing of the air, so to speak. Nothing's going to be perfect. It's best that you go about your life, as Chad and I have talked about before, in your own perspective. These are all our opinions. We are a discussion platform. I want to talk about what everyone's talking about, but maybe give you guys a little bit different of a light, or maybe a light that you already agree with, but you haven't necessarily heard being voiced. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you have not yet, please hit that subscribe button, share this video. I know that we're kind of in challenging times, and sometimes some of these videos could be hard to share, but hopefully we'll push past that, and we'll actually be able to use what, especially YouTube was meant for. And it's really just about sharing opinions. So, we have the goal. It's almost May 1st. We want to hit 60. Come on, help us out. We're trying to build this thing. Chad and I put a lot of work into this. I hope you see it, and we'll continue to grow. So with that being said, have a great weekend. Stay golden pony boy, and Florida's the place to be. So I don't know what to tell you.
Perfect place to be. Florida, America. So, all right, we're all in this together. We'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.